Welcome everybody to the first live stream on the channel. Today we're going to be breaking down the Steelers, the NFL draft. It is NFL draft eve. I'm super excited about this. In my opinion, the best weekend of the entire year. I'm super hyped. I have not slept in days. I've been trying to cram out, the last bit of NFL draft content, man, trying to get to some last minute prospects, push out some stuff to everybody. But I'm super excited to get on here and talk ball. Maybe answer some questions. But I'm joined by Zach Smith from Around the 412, one of my good buddies, and another NFL draft fanatic like myself. Zach, how we doing, brother?
Yes, sir. I think you said it best, man. This is the best time of year. It's you put so much work in, especially people like yourselves, leading up to this, and it all culminates within a few days, seeing where your favorite guys go. Most certainly, some of them are going to go to teams that you hate, and then maybe the Steelers take a few of those guys. But yeah, this weekend's an absolute blast every single year, and tomorrow, man, tomorrow.
I know. I just all day, all week, man. It's just been like, there's just been this countdown in my head. Like, man, I want to get there. I want to get there. I'm trying not to wish it away because, like, I'm not gonna lie. Saturday, when like the sixth and seventh round starts winding
Yeah,
down, like I honestly get a little bit sad because I feel like I pour so much like time and effort, like a lot of people do, into like watching
but you
these
know what?
guys. So it like it kind of makes it a little bit like bittersweet of an ending. You know what I mean?
I do. I feel like this is going to be a different year for you though, because like obviously you starting the YouTube channel and stuff, and I think people like you're going to see once players get taken that people have no idea about, and they're just looking to consume some content on them. Your videos are going to do well. You're going to see like a whole new reach that you're going to get with your YouTube channel, and that's going to be really cool as well. But yeah, I mean, for people like, I mean, obviously I make some content, not nearly as much in the draft as you, um, but I consume more content than probably anybody. Like I work from home and I'm literally just watching draft content all this week. Like I've watched so many mock drafts and just like Q&As, live streams. I feel like the only thing that's on my mind, like how SpongeBob, it's like work, work, work is on his mind. It's the NFL draft is the only thing on my mind right now.
Yeah, I know it's so funny because a bunch of my friends and stuff, they always, kind of ride on me a little bit for how consumed by the NFL draft that I am. But dude, I just can't help it, man. It's so awesome for me because I have like a small platform that I'm very grateful for. But I remember being like 5, 6 years old, like going down in my basement like Saturday mornings, you know, 9 o'clock start time or something like that.
You're saying when it was the NFL
Yeah,
draft
it
was
was
just
real,
Saturday.
real
Yeah.
young. And like just like watching like Mel Kiper and like even when I've been doing like when I was finishing up my mock draft today, I had the old NFL draft videos playing on my computer like
Hmm.
as background noise, and it's so funny to see like how the games changed. Like I was watching like one of the 90s drafts on YouTube, and like Ricky Williams got traded, and
Yes.
the Saints traded their entire draft and some picks for the next year for a running back, and it's like, dude, how times have changed. But I'm really excited, man, to kick this off. I want to get your thoughts kind of on how you see this first round playing out. Playing out. I think is it me or is there like more general uncertainty
Yeah.
around this first round than anyone that I can ever really remember?
Yeah, I agree. I think like most years we try to say something like this. Like we try to drum it up like it's like the most unique class. Like last year it was, oh, there's potentially no quarterbacks that should go in round one. So that was where the intrigue was. This year it's like, man, you have like the best player in the draft class. There's so many questions off the field with him. Will Anderson, a lot of people are saying, is it there's nothing really there to tap into. Like he's a really good football player, but that he's
Ridiculous.
at his ceiling already. Yeah. Bryce Young, the best quarterback. If he was 6'2", it's not even a conversation, but like he's an outlier physically, nothing that he can change about that. So I think, yeah, there's so much intrigue in this class. Just because we really don't know what's going to happen. Like the Texans, all the smoke about them not going QB at 2 could throw everything off. If the Cardinals don't trade back for whatever reason at 3, like things could get out of whack super quick here when tomorrow rolls around. Like by 8, we talked about it, like making the joke. Yeah, it starts at 8. First pick probably won't be till like 8:15, 8:20. By 8:30, things could totally be off the
Yeah,
rails.
just off the rails. Yeah, I know it's weird because it seems like I still think Bryce Young's gonna go number one. I
I
do
do. Yep.
believe that. But dude, like as now with Houston not being uh like a shoe in to take a quarterback, it seems like the chaos could just start almost immediately.
Well, what do you think about that pick, by the way? Do you think it's going to be quarterback, or where are you at with it? Because I go back and forth. I'll state my opinion and then you can go. Because my thing with it is trying to figure out the timelines, because obviously, like, you could say D'Amico Ryan's just getting there, like he's going to have a leash. You feel
Sure.
like he's the coach in place and they want him to be the guy. But on the opposite end of that, I look at Nick Caserio and wonder how long of a leash he has. I mean, can they put off drafting a quarterback and then go into year 4 of his tenure, now saying, okay, maybe we get Caleb Williams or Drake May, and that's like if you're a bottom 2 team, or if one of those 2 teams are looking to move out, like they don't need a quarterback. So yeah, to me, it's just like hard to try to gauge that, because you are either telling Caserio, we understand the QB situation, you're going to be the guy, or you're or letting him make a pick that he's not going to be making next year. Like, if he doesn't go quarterback this year, who's to say he's going to be the one that gets to take the franchise quarterback the following year?
And I think those the conversations that they got to have inside the room to figure out, like, all right, what's the timeline of everybody's job security, right? And like, it just seems like there's too much smoke around them not going quarterback. I mean, maybe it's Will Levis. It doesn't seem like it's going to be CJ Stroud now. A lot of people have said for months now that Tyree Wilson could go over Will Anderson. That's a take that I strongly disagree with. And if you're following me on Twitter, you'll get to see like my full top 100 big board tomorrow, and you'll notice that there's a noticeable gap between those two players. Because
I'm not putting out a big board, so I can just say this right now: I have Tyree Wilson as edge 7.
Oh man, yeah. I was gaslit into putting him higher because I listened to Nick on the draft pod and he talked me into moving him up in my rankings.
You want to hear the ones I have ahead of him?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay, so obviously Will Anderson, Nolan Smith's edge 2 in the class for me. Will McDonald is edge 3 for me.
Okay.
Miles Murphy.
Okay.
Derek Hall. BJ Ojolari, and then Tyree Wilson.
So I had him originally at 5. I moved him up to 4 after Ojolari's testing. I know Ojolari has been a little bit banged up, but that did scare me a little bit because he's a guy that I think really is going to have to rely on like being that loose and fluid athlete that I saw on tape. Still like Ojolari a lot. The pre-draft process has not been extremely kind to him. But when we talk about Houston, I mean, say they do go Tyree Wilson at 2 or whatever happens, man, like that third spot, like there's so much indecision there because the Cardinals, like, I don't know if you guys have checked out the Cardinals roster. That is a really bad football team. Shout out to my dog, Donnie Druin, who has to cover that team. That's a bad roster, dude. Like it just is. Like they need pretty much everything.
I want to ask you something. I don't want to like go completely off the rails here and focus. We want to focus on this draft, but we had this conversation last night with I brought it up to Jake and I were talking about it. We did that first round mock draft.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about the Cardinals, and they're going to be bad, obviously. And say they do have the number 1 pick. Do you take Caleb Williams and move on from Kyler Murray?
I'll be honest with you, man. I'm probably lower on Kyler than pretty much everybody. I think that Kyler is an average starting quarterback. When you get into when I think teams make huge mistakes when they get into the business of paying average quarterbacks elite tier money. I just think, because it's harder to build, like you have to hit on your draft picks. You have to be really financially frugal with your free agents. And you're depending on that player to be someone that's going to uplift those around him. And I think Kyler, I'm not saying he's hit a ceiling, but I don't see him as an elite tier quarterback that's just going to raise everyone else up off the roster. So to me, I'm bullish on Caleb Williams. I won't get off on a tangent on Caleb Williams now because
that's all I wanted to ask you was that one question because Jake and I were in the same boat because I don't care what you got to do with that. You can find a suitor in a trade.
Yeah. To answer your question, yes, that's the way that I would go. But that's the thing. They could be in that situation because if you look at it, the roster's not good. Kyler's coming off a serious injury. It's a scary situation over there. That's why, to me, Arizona, as much as I really like Will Anderson, he's the number 2 player on my big board. If I had the chance, especially to trade down with Indianapolis, I would be calling the Colts. Hey, we've got Vegas on the line. We've got Tennessee on the line. They're looking to trade up for a quarterback. You better, if you want your guy, whether that's Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud or Will Levis, whatever quarterback they target, you better come up and get this guy right now. Because if not, I'm dealing this pick, because that's what the Cardinals really need to do. Even if they move back 1 to 3 spots, get some day 2 capital. Hopefully you get a starter or 2 in there, kind of fill out the rest of your roster, because you know you're going to be bad. You're going to be back in this situation next year. Get some draft capital. Try to surround your roster with like a functional supporting cast. And then when Kyler comes back next year, if you're set on him being the quarterback, get Olu Fashanu, somebody like that, a franchise left tackle. Or maybe they trade down and take a guy like Paris Johnson. It seems like there are reports coming out saying that they like him. I think that 3 to me is really rich for Paris Johnson.
You said you wanted to talk about this anyway, so we might as well bring this up now. Thomas Dimitroff, former GM of the Falcons, has a podcast with Eric Yeager, Sumer Sports. And they were kind of talking about this, and this wasn't just like recently, and this isn't like specifically a Paris Johnson thing. This is just in general talking about this. And he said, anything that you hear within the last, 48 hours or so of the draft, throw it away. Every team's made their board. Every team, like, those conversations are not still being had in terms of like where a guy is there. So like for all of a sudden people to be talking about Paris Johnson as like a top 3 player, somebody that could go at 3, I'm not buying it. I think it's 48 hours before, in this case 24 hours before the draft, smoke that somebody's trying to drum up. I think Paris Johnson is a very good player. I can't get on board with number 3 overall type of capital being invested
rich
into
to
him.
me, man.
That type of left tackle. Yeah. And maybe it's the state of, okay, you look at this tackle class, Skoronski might be the best offensive lineman, but is he just a tackle? And then there's a lot of guys to me that are right tackles. So if you're looking at it like, okay, Paris Johnson is the one guy that we think can play on the left side from day one, because even like a Broderick Jones, I think down the line, very good player, but I think from, he's got some stuff to clean up. Technically, the hand placement scares me a little bit early on. I think he's got to clean that up. And I think whoever gets him is going to get a good player down the line, but I think right away, probably going to be a little bit frustrated if you ask him to go play left tackle immediately. Yeah, so that's why like, Paris Johnson's value could be more within the state of the tackle class than it is Paris Johnson himself.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, and I've said that I think the top of this tackle class is being overrated a little bit because of there's a drastic drop off after these first couple guys.
None of these guys touch Ikwonu or Charles Cross, even for me. I'm not like totally out on Evan Neal after his rookie year, but I think his rookie year is what you're looking at for like a Broderick potentially.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree. I want to get to Mike Turner's question. What's up, Micho? I see you in the chat. What's good? Appreciate you tapping in with us. Mike Turner says, starting to feel like the trade up target is really Joey Porter Jr. Nobody knows how these teams are ranking the top quarterbacks. Steelers might want to avoid the William Jackson 1-1 draft dilemma. Thoughts? Man, I will be honest with you.
That's supposed to be third, by the way. 1-1-1. I was confused that it was like.
Okay, got you. No, I got you. That's on me. No, in terms of William Jackson, man, like, I don't know. I think we talked about this. Maybe text. Did we talk about this as Washington? I was either talking to you or Nick. I can't remember about Washington potentially being a suitor for Joey Porter Jr.
I love that fit. Yeah. I mean, like, throw away the Steelers stuff from like a player team fit. I think Washington.
And I just think like Washington's in a weird spot, right? Because like I could see them sniping. I could see them taking Darnell Wright, a potential Steelers target who I mocked to them today. I could see them taking Joey Porter Jr.
Deontay Banks makes sense. Like,
I mean, there's a couple different Steelers guys that we've talked a lot about that could potentially go to Washington at 16, and that's it's interesting to think about. In terms of trading up, I'm of the opinion of if I'm going to trade up for anyone in this class, it would be for Jalen Carter. And that's just because that I think that Jalen Carter's the best player in this draft. I know there's some work ethic, maturity concerns off the field that are scaring teams. And I trust that pretty much everyone's done a ton of homework because I think that he has an unlimited ceiling. I really believe that Jalen Carter is a Quinnen Williams, Jeffrey Simmons type of presence in the trenches. And he would be someone that I would be loving to get my hands on. I would die to get my hands on him, even if it requires a trade up to go grab him for the Steelers or really anyone. anyone aside from that, I think it's a little bit risky. Like I said, I like Paris Johnson Jr. He's my top true left tackle because I grade Skoronski as a guard. But I think a trade up, I think he's going to have hard time paying off that value until you get later into his rookie contract. I think that he can be a potential top 10 left tackle in the league, and that's insanely valuable. But there is some risk there. And I think that,
Yeah.
his play dipped a little bit later in the season when you saw him go up against a little bit better competition. Trading up for Joey Porter Jr. So Joey Porter Jr. is the fourth cornerback on my big board. I am perfectly okay with taking him at 17. I think a trade up, if you're talking trade up, are we talking 2 to 3 spots?
Probably, I would think you're just trying to jump Washington, getting him, like, say he falls to 14 could make sense because New England loves to move back.
Yeah,
although they would need for Joey as well. But
right, so because they've got all those short shrimps at cornerback. They could use like a big bodied guy with a lot of length. If we're talking about giving up another third round pick to go up and get him if he's your guy, I think with Porter's length, he could potentially pay that off, especially when you talk about a team that's going to have to face Cincinnati, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, if the Steelers start making the playoffs again. You look at, having a guy to potentially combat one of those two players is really intriguing. The thing with Porter, man, he needs, his footwork needs to be really overhauled from the ground up. There's a lot of false steps. He will take false steps, lock his hips out, which makes it difficult for him to open up his hips and run vertically. He improved on the grabbiness, but he's not really I don't know that he's ever really going to be a huge playmaker. He does get his hands in the passing lanes a little bit more. That may suggest that turns into turnover potential down the road. But I think that a trade up for anyone aside from Jalen Carter it's just not my preferred thing. I don't like the idea.
Right. Yeah, I think any trade up in round 1, at least for me, would have to be coupled with a trade down at 32. I think that's kind of where I'm at.
100%. Yeah, I think you'd have to do that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. But I do want to say, not that Mike was saying this, but it just came into my mind as we're sitting here talking about he name specific for being traded up. Because people were throwing out there Paris Johnson, that would be the guy that they're trading up for. The Steelers have said that. First off, the Steelers would never say that. No team is calling teams and saying, "Hey, this is who we want to trade up for."
Yeah,
if you're interested. So that is total speculation in terms of that. I think it's fair to, when you look at the Steelers, the way they've gone through the offseason, the interest they've had pre-draft, to say that Paris Johnson probably is the guy. If it is a corner, that would kind of surprise me just because they like so many of them. Nobody had more visits with corners. I think that they like enough to not have to make that leap up. They'll be like, okay, we'll wait on a guy on day 2 if there's not one at 17 that we like. So it's a little bit, for me, at least personally, my opinion would be that they wouldn't move up for a corner. And I could see it happening for tackle more than corner.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, no one's shown more interest in the cornerbacks, even though the Steelers have shown a lot of interest in, the top tier tackles as well. Those are the big 2 positions.
Well, yeah, it's seven top 30 with corners and 6 with tackles.
I think the first 2 picks are probably going to be one of those 2 positions, right? And I think when you look at just the depth of those positions in the class, tackle really falls off, in my opinion, after the first 3 or 4 tackles. A lot of the tackles that are after that tier, you're looking at DeJuan Jones, then potentially Cody Mock, Matthew Bergeron. Are those guys even tackles at the next level, or are they more so interior offensive linemen who are probably going to kick inside? I think that that's the case. Maybe, you can convince yourself in a Jalen Duncan in the 3rd round. I just don't think that that's going to be what they want to do. Jake's killing me. Jake, don't get blocked, man. This Mikey said, really do think Steelers go corner at 17, find Dan Moore's potential replacement round 2 or later. Hey, if the Steelers can get a corner at 17, let's say they stick at 17, Joey Porter Jr., or I would be all on board with Deonte Banks. Say they got them at 17, and then at 32, even if you moved up a couple spots to maybe go get a guy like Anton Harrison, who I really like out of Oklahoma, that's a really good scenario that I like.
Matthew Bergeron's a hot name.
Yeah. So I think either way, for me, when I was doing my mock draft this morning, I'm just thinking to myself, there's some smoke out there about the Steelers potentially trading up. The tackle class dips after the first little bit. I just think that, they may be comfortable waiting until 32 or the second round to get a corner, and then, try to go up and be aggressive to get
I do think
the
with the
tackle
you mentioned DeJuan Jones. I do think it's interesting they ended up canceling that top 30 visit with him. There's a lot of
after the reports.
yeah, and also I mean, so I don't want to like just start throwing stuff at the wall, but knowing the Steelers, I the fact that he didn't work out at Ohio State's pro day, I'm thinking they probably took a bit of issue with.
Yep. I'm gonna drop a little knowledge. I have said this not on my TL, but on the All Steelers channel. So I'm gonna say it again. It's my channel. I'm gonna say what I want. There's not a lot of information on why Jones only went to the first day of the Senior Bowl. Y'all know like how he only practiced the first
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
day, and like
Mhm.
he blew it up, and then like he kind of decided that he was gonna mail it in the rest of the day, or the rest of the week. He was there, he wasn't there. People were saying like different things. There's more to that story. I'll just say that with DeJuan Jones on why he didn't participate the rest of the week. And I think when you couple that with
I've
the
taken him out
fact that
of
he didn't, yeah. I just think when you couple that with all the rumors and stuff about like him not working out, because here's the thing. We know that DeJuan Jones isn't gonna he wasn't gonna test well. It's not like he was gonna go to his pro day and everybody was gonna be like, wow, this is a first round caliber like prototype athlete for tackle. Like we knew that he's
mhm.
not that big type of guy. But it's just the fact that like when you're a guy who weighs 375 pounds, you slim down, we think, for the combine to run your 40. He runs slow, whatever. We knew he wasn't fast. And then at your pro day, you don't want to weigh in, you don't want to do drills, even though your stock was seemingly on the way up, or at least that's how it seemed in the media. There's a lot of questions there. I want to answer this
Yeah,
question.
mhm.
This is Big Ben's burner. He follows me on Twitter. I like this dude a lot. Do you
Yeah, yeah.
think Christian Gonzalez goes top 5? I'll let you go first on that one.
I'm gonna say no. I think the conversation starts at 6 with Detroit, but they didn't even
Hmm.
meet with him. And I also think if they were gonna take a corner in that spot, it's probably Witherspoon. I think that he fits their mold a lot more. So I think really then I start to look down like the Raiders could at 7. I really think Atlanta at 8 is the first spot. I know that they just got Jeff Okuda, but they moved on from Casey Hayward. Atlanta could do it. I actually think he could be a guy that all of a sudden, even though the way he's being viewed, those traits, I think he could go outside of the top 10. So I think that on most NFL teams' boards, just from like what we've seen, what we've heard, what I'm buying into, there's going to be more teams with Witherspoon as CB1. And I think he's the first one off the board. And I think Gonzalez waits a little bit while we see these tackles that probably shouldn't go higher.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think to me, and this is just my opinion,
Yeah.
when you look at the cornerback position, that is a stopwatch position, right, at the next level. I know it's a difficult transition to the league, and it doesn't have a great hit rate, especially early in the draft. But Gonzalez checks like every single box that you want in a guy that you're going to take really early. He's big, he's athletic, he's fast, he's got great hips, especially for his size. He's been productive. The ball production really improved this past season. He can play zone, he can play man, he can backpedal, he can play and press, multiple different coverage assignments. I think that, a plus character too, a smart player. I just think that there's not a lot of concerns or like things that you can nitpick about his game. Some people say that, well, he doesn't play like just as physical to his frame as he could all the time. I don't really buy that. There's some times where I watch this film and I was actually impressed with his physicality, even though he's not this, like if you watch him and Devin Witherspoon back to back, like you're not gonna think that he's this junkyard dog like Devin Witherspoon is. But I don't get the notion that he's not physical. Like I think that he can do that, and I like Christian Gonzalez a lot. He was a top 10 player on my board. I think he finished somewhere between 6 and 8 in this class. Even though I did have him ranked, graded a little bit lower than the cornerbacks in last year's class. But
Yeah.
Austin's commenting here, but what if we traded up for Christian Gonzalez? If we somehow did that, it would be wild. look, I love Christian Gonzalez. Again, I'm just not really huge on like trading up just because I think the Steelers have some under discussed needs. Maybe not starter needs for like next season because they've done a good job filling out their roster otherwise. But I think they've got some underrated like depth needs that I would be a little bit weary about.
Yeah.
Trading away a bunch of draft capital, even though I do love Christian Gonzalez. Like, don't get me wrong, they get Christian Gonzalez. Y'all see this basement down here? I'm gonna be doing backflips through it. I'll live stream it, so I'm happy about that. But I do
Yeah.
think it's a little bit risky.
And I think we talked about this before, right before we started actually like live streaming. It's what the perceived cost is. So like
Right.
assuming that it's going to cost what we think it would, and there is like a bidding more, than yeah, like I can't get on board with doing that. But if it costs less, like say there's not any team trying to get to that spot, teams trying to get out of that pick regardless, they're just taking whatever offer to move back. And the Steelers can come in there and offer, what are we saying, like a third or something to move up to a spot to get
Sure.
Christian Gonzalez? Sure, you absolutely do that. I think it is interesting to note too, and I'm not saying that this always plays, but since 2018 was the last one, the number one corner off the board has not paid off more than at least the second corner off the board. So it's almost better historical tendency wise for Christian Gonzalez to be the second after Witherspoon. You look back, J.C. Horn's a good player, but Patrick Surtain literally
CB1
one pick later. Yeah. DeAndre Baker obviously didn't work out. Who would have been in 20 who was the first corner the year that AJ Terrell went?
I'm gonna have to go look at that because that's a
it would
really
have been
thing I didn't think about.
It'd have been CJ Henderson above him, and Okudah. Okudah went third overall,
and he didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, and I do think it's fair to mention that Okudah, the injuries probably paid. I mean, Okudah was such a clean prospect. I mean, he was like universally liked. I don't really. I mean, I remember people tabbing him as like the safest cornerback prospect we had seen in a number of years and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. If the NFL's dumb enough to let Christian Gonzalez fall, especially anywhere near 17, like I'm down with that. I see what you're saying because like we just went on a 20-minute rant early in the live stream about the tackle run starting early and all that stuff. Maybe that stuff does push a guy like Gonzalez down, but when I look at this dude's,
especially in this class,
this build, man. I literally so I'm dropping a big board in the morning for the site, and I'm doing one-liners for every prospect on there. And my one-liner for Christian Gonzalez is let me go look at it. So he's my number 6 player on my board, and I literally just put he's a build a corner with unbelievable hip fluidity. Like that's how I view him. Like if you were constructing a cornerback that you'd want for the modern day NFL, like he would look like Christian Gonzalez. So I don't know. I would be really surprised if he did fall, but we get surprised every year by like just random guys that like we're like, why is this dude still on the board? And you just don't know. So
I do want to touch on. I saw a comment that we didn't bring up. Somebody said, "What could be a haul for pick 32?" Now that's going to be obviously dependent on like how much interest there is. Like that is a very desirable spot to be in, and the Steelers have talked about this. Tomlin and Con in their press conference. Teams are going to have 20 hours after round 1 ends to see who's still on the board, and we know there's going to be some guys that teams are going to be like, that guy didn't go in round 1, and they got to get to that spot to get that guy. Now, just based off a trade chart, which is not the best thing to go based off of, that pick has a value of 1,244, which is worth picks 81 and then 147 in the early 5th. It's actually relatively close to what no, it's a little bit less than what Antonio Brown got traded for, funny enough.
Good times.
But anyway, so yeah, but it's really like how much interest is there. That's what's going to determine it all. It doesn't really matter about the value of the spot itself. That's just kind of like I guess a good reference point, but it really doesn't mean anything because you could have, 10 teams trying to get there. And then obviously the value is so much higher than if there's just one.
Like you said, man, like the fact that it's the first pick of the draft, like how many times I know for me, I think I remember I hopped on the Around the 412 show last year. And we were literally talking about how day 2 is our favorite day of the draft, right?
It's a better day.
I think it's the better day. The Steelers also seem to pick more prospects that I particularly like on day 2. Like I mocked George Pickens last year to the Steelers. I was like banging the table for that basically since before the season even ended, college football wise. And, I was really hype about that. But, like you said, you made a good point. There's going to be like 20 hours of just nonstop where I just
Team
picture,
seeing who's on the board. Yep.
I picture Omar Khan like just in his office, like, hello, 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 hello. Like,
Well, that's the thing. It's so
it's
hard
going to be
for
crazy.
teams to pull off trades in the draft because you have that
You only
time
have 15
limit.
minutes. Yeah.
He got almost an entire day once day one wraps up to realize these are the players still on the board, and teams to say, I got to have that guy. I got to get the potential of, say, Brian Brzee falls out of round one, and the team is absolutely in love with that 2020 and think he can get back to that. Anton Harrison falls out of. I saw somebody actually talking about a move up or down from 32. Anton Harrison's actually a guy that I would think about there, depending on how those tackles go, because I was talking about this with Drew as well. If those tackles, if there is a run, and that's very possible that there is early in the top 10 where it starts, you would think that pushes Anton Harrison up quite a bit too. But I think that is like, for me, if there's a tackle run, you get a corner at 17, and then somehow you're within striking distance of getting Harrison, like whether that's moving up a few spots from 32 or he somehow falls to 32.
Yeah. No,
Harrison, by the way, is my OT2, which is probably a hot take.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, he's high for me. I have him at the 4th spot, but I have him and Broderick Jones like literally with
Ian
near
Cummings
identical
has him
grades.
as OT2 as well.
Yeah.
Football Network. Yeah.
In terms of Eric's question, is it possible to land an OT at 17? I mean, earlier today I mocked them Darnell Wright from Tennessee at 17. Moving up and down at 32, like Zach said, I mean, they're going to be open for business. I think we've discussed a lot, not just on this live stream, but like Twitter, and there's been a bunch of hypotheticals about moving down because it seemed like Khan and Tomlin were both really open to the potential. I'll say more than open to the potential of moving.
That's as open as you're going to get Tomlin, right?
Yeah,
there.
I mean, they pretty much told you exactly what it was, but I would be really intrigued about this. Is like kind of like my dream scenario is if everybody get a tackle that they were really happy with, say a Broderick Jones, Darnell Wright, something like that, and then a guy like Deonte Banks, who I think he's a top 15 player on my board. Like, say, I think his floor has to be Baltimore. Like, I cannot see the Ravens staring at him on the board and not taking him with the need that they have across from Marlon Humphrey. I just can't see it happening. But if he was to somehow start falling for whatever reason, and I don't see this happening because Banks tested looks exactly like the modern day corner that you would look for. But if he was to fall in the late 1st round, I'd be really considering like, all right, what do I got to do to get up and go get this dude? Because then you talk about, say you come away with like Darnell Wright at 17, and then you trade up to you trade ahead of the Bengals at 28, trade to like Buffalo or something like that. And you get Banks, dude, come on now. Like that's two really good players who are going to immediately come in and contribute as rookies, even if it's not in a starting fashion. Like, they will play as rookies eventually. And I think that both of those could be foundational pieces to your long-term future. So I think it's going to be interesting. I definitely think a trade down is more possible than a trade up, but I do think, it just doesn't seem like anyone's talking about a potential trade up there. And I just, I don't know. I think
Jeremy Fowler put it out there today about them potentially moving up at 32. Yeah, which was the first time that I'd seen it. So
did you see someone DM me this? And I'm surprised he's not in here, or maybe he is, and he's just not putting anything in the chat. But one of my good follows on Twitter hit me up and said that Fowler was talking about Nolan Smith today. And he said that I think the quote was, I want to go to the DM. And again, I'm getting this secondhand. So like if I misquote this, it's my bad, but I trust this dude. He said Fowler just said Nolan Smith won't make it past pick 17. I can tell you that. End quote. So that's kind of interesting to me. Nolan Smith is a guy that I think is going to go before the Steelers have a chance to pick at 17. But I offered this scenario yesterday on Twitter. Like, let's say, theoretically, and this would probably be, I guess, probably worst case scenario for what most people would think. Let's say the top 3 tackles, let's say Paris Johnson Jr., Broderick Jones, Darnell Wright, and the top 3 corners, Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, and Joey Porter Jr. Let's say that all 6 of those guys are somehow off the board by the pick 17. What do the Steelers do? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I know that I would be comfortable taking Deonte Banks at 17.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they would, because they didn't have the normal like power figures at his pro day, even though who knows how things are going to change with Omar Khan in charge. I don't know. But I think that that's an interesting scenario because it could happen. I'm not saying it's likely, but that could be a worst case scenario type of situation.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point to bring up too. It's because like we've had a good gauge. It's been relatively, I don't want to say easy, but easy compared to other people trying to follow other teams around the league to follow the Steelers and say this is probably what they're going to do. You look at what they do in terms of visits at the combine, pro days for the first round, and then like top 30 has typically been a good indicator on day 2 for the direction that they go. Is that still going to be the case with this regime though? I think we're gonna find out here starting tomorrow. But yeah, like if you go through, Drew made a spreadsheet for me. This is literally every team in the NFL who they've met with in any capacity. So like looking at the Steelers and potential guys that would be in play at 17 if who you're saying is gone. I mean, Deonte Banks would obviously be on there. I mean, listen, I could get 100% on board with a Brian Branch. I don't know that everybody can. I could get on board with a Brian Branch. And honestly, that might be like, unless, well, this could open up a different conversation because like Keely Ringo's on here, right? So it's like, would he all of a sudden be in play? Would they be the team to take like a Drew Sanders or something like that?
That to me is the doomsday scenario. I'm telling you right now. Y'all heard me earlier when I said like Christian Gonzalez goes to 17. I'll stream me back flipping through this basement. if the Steelers take a off-ball linebacker at any point in the first 32 picks, I am going to lose my mind. I'm going to go crazy because I do not like this linebacker class at all. Just real quick, I see a lot of questions.
Yeah, I came back to this tab and I see that
there's a lot of questions. We're gonna get to everybody's questions. I appreciate it. Keep dropping those in the comments. Everybody, just real quick, do me a favor. Make sure you like the podcast. That way we can get some more engagement. It really helps grow the channel. I appreciate you guys. We will continue to answer as many questions as you can. Wes, we talked a little bit about this earlier, so I'm not going to go too far in depth, but you can go back to the beginning of the podcast. We talked a lot about the tackles potentially going before pick 17. If that happened, I think that there's a good chance that a cornerback would fall at 17. Anton Harrison is the guy that I think it wouldn't surprise me if like the Bucks took him in round 1 at like 19.
I've done that.
Yeah, so. I mean, I like Anton Harrison a lot. If he was somehow available at 32, like,
yes,
I would take him. If your comment, I think this is what you're implying, is taking a corner at 17 and 32. Look, I'm all about double dipping in this class. This is a very, very good cornerback class. It's got the top end talent. It's deep, all that stuff. Like I literally. I see someone in here. Austin made a comment real quick. Saw something on Twitter. Can't remember who from trading Kevin Dotson during the draft. That was me. So I literally in my mock draft, I called my shot. I think they're going to trade Kevin. I think that it's a possibility they could trade Kevin Dotson, 5th or 6th round pick. I had them taking Keitrell Clark from Louisville. He's got inside-outside versatility, a guy that I watched at the Shrine Bowl light it up. This dude was literally the best player, I think, at the Shrine. Just made hella plays all week long. So I would love to do that, like double dipping at 17 and 32. I think if you're going to do that, one of those corners has to have slot versatility. And
that would be to me like, is that considering Brian Branch at 17? Yeah, okay. And
that's cool. If Branch is that guy, sure, count me on board. Because then you've got your because here's the thing about corner, right? Who's the developmental piece or the long term, linchpin of the secondary right now in terms of like cornerbacks? Like they've got Levi Wallace, 1-year deal. Patrick Peterson probably going to be here for 1 year. If he's here for more than that, it's maybe a conversion to safety. I don't think he's going to be able to play a corner very much longer. He's definitely lost a step. Even though I can get on board with signing. But they don't have like guys like in the pipeline. They're not developing anyone. They're not waiting on guys. I like James Pierre, but like I still think that he's a quality CB5 kind of depth piece. It's really more of a special teams guy, break glass in case of emergency, defensive player. So double dipping, 100% on board. I think 17 and 32 is probably not going to be the case. I mean, I could see them double dipping though.
Right. Yeah.
This dude, I'm gonna try to get to the next one here. Is Edge something y'all believe the Steelers will address early due to the potential departure of Alex Highsmith? I'll let you take that one first.
I was really hoping by now that we could see some movement on a contract extension with Highsmith.
Same.
But I mean, for me, either way, like getting quality pass rushers, I don't think you can have enough. We've seen TJ even as recently as last year missing as much time as he has, and what that would do. If you cannot have that happen again and have as little behind him. Unfortunately, Malik Reed didn't pan out the way that we had maybe hoped that he would. But yeah, I mean, at 17, it's going to have to be a player that like I absolutely love, like a Nolan Smith, where I think that you can find a way to get all three of those guys on the field. I don't want it to be due to a potential departure of Alex Highsmith, though. Like that's the thing that I keep coming back to. It's like either way, if they are adding edge, I don't think it really is due to the future of Alex Highsmith.
Yeah, so I'm mocked. I think the edge, like we talked about earlier in the pod about moving up, right? And my thing was I think that there are some depth needs that are really important that are kind of being under discussed. Edge 3, like what happens? What happens if TJ Watt misses time again this year? Does anyone in the chat even know who the current Edge 3 for the Steelers is?
About a month ago, I would have said Bud Dupree.
Sure, yeah, but that didn't. But that didn't come to fruition. So like,
yeah,
that was why I ended up mocking them. Felix Anudike-Uzomah from
I like him.
From Kansas State. I think that he has the Steelers like typical athleticism. Already kind of ready-made passer or pass rusher that could contribute on third downs. He needs to continue to improve as a run defender, but I think that there is starter capable qualities in Felix Anudike-Uzomah that I could definitely get on board with. And I think that the Steelers too, like I'm with you that I hope that something does get done with Alex Highsmith. But that's not guaranteed, right? Like, are the Steelers going to be comfortable paying $50 million to two edge rushers?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. We really don't know. Like, we've never seen them do it. It doesn't mean they won't. It doesn't mean that it would be a bad thing if they did with a rookie quarterback contract. But I just don't know if that's something that they're going to want to do. And I think that regardless, like setting yourself up from an edge 3 perspective this year, getting somebody to help you in case of injury and protect yourself in the event that, say, Alex Highsmith goes and has another double-digit sack season. 14 and a half sacks last year. Say he has 10, 11 sacks this year. He's going to get $20 million on the open market. I'm telling you right now, he's going to get $20 million. I don't see a scenario. So like then it just becomes about roster construction. Like, are you willing to pay that much money to one singular position? I don't know the answer to that. I was hoping that we would have it before the draft so we didn't have to speculate about it.
Yeah, I think that's where you start to weigh that. It's like, okay, you kind of have to have that in your mind already, right? It's like, okay, take Nolan Smith or something this year, and then you let Alex Highsmith walk. Unfortunately, I hate those words even come out of my mouth. And then you recoup that comp pick. So it's just, it's an interesting way that you kind of have to have that foresight though when doing this. And that's why, again, it would have been nice to have, an extension in place so we would know what would happen there. You know what's funny though is somebody mentioned edge 3 can be Mark Robinson, and then my mind went to how I said about Drew Sanders, because
that's a good point.
Yeah, he can rush the passer.
Yeah, I could see that.
Don't love the pick, but if you take him at 32, I still don't love it, by the way. And all of a sudden you're using him off ball, but also rushing the passer sometimes, like literally just letting him kind of do not free reign, but like, moving him around in different spots and utilizing his blitz ability too, because he can get after it. Like from an off ball standpoint, he's the one guy that I think like, is it Ivan Pace? You like him as coming downhill.
Yeah, as a blitzer.
So yeah.
So here's the deal. Let me wrap a different name to you real quick before we kind of get off the edge topic that I think we've hammered home. What about Herbig from Wisconsin for that same
Did you hold on,
purpose?
hold on? Someone literally commented that as you were saying that.
Chelsea, man, on it. I mean, I guess we should have just had you host the pod. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't need you to. I don't know why I'm on here. I'll just check out, I guess. No, like that's what I'm saying. Like maybe
And his brother's on the
on
team.
day
So
two, getting a guy like Herbig who can play. Like I think a lot of people are expecting him to transition to like an inside linebacker, off ball linebacker role at the next level. But he's played 3-4 outside linebacker for Wisconsin. There are a lot of similarities in terms of scheme and how they do their stuff up front from Wisconsin to the Steelers. Like that's why they've been
yeah,
kind of heavily linked to some guys like that in the past. Like you look at Isaiah Loudermilk, that kind of made sense. I think Herbert's an interesting player because he's flexible, man. He's bendy. He can rush the passer. I like the idea if you're looking for a really athletic option to maybe play multiple positions early on. I think that is an idea that I can get behind, maybe more so than paying up for a guy like Drew Sanders, who's probably going to go like maybe a
I
round
agree.
earlier. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my only question is how many Wisconsin players are we taking? Because we know we're taking Keanu Benton. So
Yeah.
like
Well, that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, and we'll get through everything in the chat before I start going through, my personal
but they
questions.
did. Herbig is on here. I mean, they've met with him. He is an interesting name. The
Yeah,
versatility they're gonna like, and Wisconsin does run a lot of similar stuff defensively to the Steelers, so it's not as hard of a transition for those guys.
absolutely. What are you from Gavin? Gavin, I appreciate your support, man. I see your comments on my stuff frequently. What are your guys' thoughts on OT, cornerback, defensive tackle in no particular order? Is there any other position that's more likely in the first two rounds? We kind of hit on that. I think offensive tackle, cornerback, man, has to be the leader in the clubhouse as far as like where those first two positions are going to go. It could get a little funky, depending on trade ups, trade downs. Like I put in my mock, I think like maybe Omar Khan just throws us all for a loop and goes anti Kevin Colbert and just starts maneuvering the board like this like freaking wizard as if he's been doing it for the last couple decades and surprise us all. I don't know.
Yeah.
Defensive tackle is interesting, man, because I think that you could make a case um, to take in a defensive tackle as early as like 49, maybe even 32 if a guy like Mozzie Smith was there, depending on how they like him. I think he makes sense as a zero tech guy that can really, really play the run, and I think he's got some untapped pass rushing potential too. But like Zach said, man, like Keanu Benton. I mean, if there are guys that just look like Steelers, and you're like, man, you watch him, you're like, dude, this dude's a Steeler. Like, there's a couple of those guys every cycle where I just go, this dude's a Steeler, and Keanu Benton is at the very, very tip top of that list for me.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That's why I said that. To Gavin's question here, I'm not like trying to discredit the question or anything like that, and I'm not like I hope my answer doesn't come off that way. But I think it's important to always go back to don't draft a position just because you feel like your team needs that position more than anything.
Yeah,
I think luckily for the Steelers, what they do need most value wise should line up for that pick at 17. Like when you look at the way that things we think are going to fall, right? There should be a really good tackle or a really good corner, one of those two. Now, there is obviously a scenario that plays out potentially here where it's like you're saying, break glass. What in the world do we do now? Because everything that we thought was going to be on the board, or one of those guys we thought was going to be on the board, isn't there. But I think in an ideal world, value should line up where, yeah, like need and value are going to line up here for them.
yeah,
But yeah, cornerback, offensive tackle, D tackle is definitely one that I keep coming back to within those first three picks, and Keanu Benton is a big reason why, as well as Mozzie Smith, Gervon Dexter. Like those are the guys that I keep thinking about along the defensive line. I mean, people kept trying to throw in. I mean, even as recently as probably 2 weeks ago, we've seen some mocks talking about like a Lucas Van Ness. And while he's listed as edge, he's better as an interior rusher. I would be
agree.
probably, if you're taking him, I'm thinking, okay, we're grooming this guy to take Cam Hayward's spot.
That's what it has to be,
Yeah.
in my opinion. I don't. I really do not think that. I just Van Ness is a guy that I'm significantly lower on. You guys will see that when my big board comes out tomorrow. I could be completely wrong on him. He's a guy that I just don't see it with, man. I do agree that I think if you're going to get the absolute best out of him, he's a guy that needs to rush inside. He needs to, really just get a little bit bigger and put on a little bit more to his frame instead of being like a full-time edge. I am a little bit more on board with him after seeing him test like an unbelievable freak. And that is something that I really value in terms of edge rushers. Athleticism, get off, explosiveness, that really matters for edge rushers. Like if you look at the game's
Yeah.
top 15, top 20 guys at that position, like 90+% of them are elite athletes. And they also come in the first round. So I get that that's why Van Ness is going to get taken there. He's just, to me, I just was not as impressed with the tape as I guess everybody else was. But I'm different. Sometimes it is what it is. What
I
was I
do
going
want
to
to
say?
bring up a couple more names that were listed at edge, just because
Hmm.
it seemed like, I mean, Tomlin looked at Malik Willis a certain way last year, and everybody bought into it and thought he was the guy.
Sure.
Those pictures circulating, though, just he had that look in his eye when he was looking at Will McDonald at Iowa State, and they've met with him. What do you think about him? Like, would he be in play potential? I think he's a late first guy, but say he were at 32, and we're talking about the possibility of adding an edge here in the event that Highsmith isn't back. What do you think about a guy like Will McDonald?
Yeah, count me in on Will McDonald. He's a guy that I really, really like. I liked him a lot in the summer, and it's funny because I went back to some clips that I tweeted on Twitter, and I was literally saying, I'm like, this dude's listed at edge in every like database I can find, and they got this dude playing three tech with his hand in the dirt over a guard at 235 pounds. Like they were asking him to do literally the impossible in that scheme, in that 3-3-5 scheme of theirs at Iowa State. But in terms of McDonald, man, like this dude is bendy, and he's explosive off the line. 35-inch arms, so you love that type of wingspan. He really just hasn't gotten the chance to really showcase, in my opinion, what he could really potentially do. And that's kind of intriguing to me because I do think he could be a better pro than he was in college, and he was productive in college, even though he was playing really out of position. But
Yeah.
I'm all on board with Will McDonald. I think that again, if you're preparing for potentially life after Alex Highsmith, you do what you got to do there. I think that's definitely a potential option, maybe at 32 if he were to fall out of the first round. It seems like he's getting that first round buzz now.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. What are your guys' predictions on 17? I already gave mine because I did my mock this today. Do you want to give yours right now, or you want to save that, or I don't know if you want
Uh,
to tease it. I don't know what your
no, I'm
plans are
cool
for
with
that.
saying
So
it because I'm not
okay,
gonna like. So actually, Tyler and I are having a mock draft off because one of us is gonna have to buy somebody a jersey depending on who has the worst mock draft. So,
uh-oh.
yeah. My prediction for 17 is that they don't stay at 17. So
I
I
like
guess
it.
the question would switch to who's my prediction for the first round. It's going to be Broderick Jones in a slight trade up.
Okay, interesting. That again, I think I already voiced my
So
opinion on
so
that. It's not
because
my favorite thing, but
this is a scenario in my opinion where that tackle run that's been talked about to me
mhm.
doesn't happen. I think that they go a little farther towards the back end of that top 10. That's when they start going, and we see the Steelers trade up in my opinion, I think you got a couple spots. I think it's 12 with the Texans or 14 with the Patriots. The Patriots love to move back. I think that they are. Have the Patriots and Steelers ever made a trade though?
That is
I don't
true.
know.
I don't know. I'd have to think about. I mean, the Steelers really haven't been making very many draft
Yeah,
trades.
that's
Like they're
true.
like
That's
near the
true.
very, very bottom of draft movement over the
Sure.
course of like our lifetime. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean that's definitely interesting. I don't know. Again, not my favorite scenario, but I could definitely
Well,
get
it's
on
not
board.
mine either. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
not like
definitely. You're
it's not like
saying
my
what you think they're gonna do, not necessarily what you would do. So I definitely I agree with what you're saying there. Eric, opinion on taking a center, John Michael Schmitz, Avila, Tippmann, Whippler, finish the O line. Hey man, I keep like throwing this on the TL and throwing it on the TL, and the Steelers, even after signing Isaac Seumalo, even after signing Herbig, they have still continued to show an unbelievable amount of interest in interior offensive linemen.
It was
Like,
the most interesting thing to me about
yes,
the
it really has
visits. Yeah,
been.
but
Yes, about the entire process, just how much time and resources they've spent on the interior offensive line, especially after they signed 2 guards. That's why, A, I'm predicting a Kevin Dotson trade. B, I definitely don't think the Steelers are viewing Mason Cole as like a long-term thing. I think he's more of like a stopgap, serviceable starter that they are comfortable with, but if they see an option to upgrade over him, they're going to be fine with that. I do want to like Tippmann, John Michael Schmitz at 32 potentially. I actually really like Steve Avila. He's actually my interior offensive line too.
yes,
I think that he's probably a better guard than center, but like he has literally played every position on the offensive line, I think, except left tackle. So supreme versatility. And that's definitely something that a lot of NFL teams are going to value about him moving forward. I want to throw out a couple more names. One, the guy who I mocked in the 3rd round didn't get invited to the combine, Chandler Zavala from NC State. I know
yeah. I
Pat
met with
Mayer's
him.
got some ties there. He used to be their strength and conditioning coach, but he was present. All right. I'm just reading tea leaves here. That's like when I'm trying to do like mock drafts and like my Steelers draft prep. You're just trying to read the tea leaves, right?
Hmm.
And so Pat Mayer was at his pro day, and then a couple like he had a phenomenal pro day. Like he tested like off the charts, like a 995 RAS, I think. Zach, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. Um, Zavala then was brought in for a top 30 visit, just like 4 days. I think it was like 4 days after he was a reported top 30 visit. And I think that that's a potential name. I'll
Nine
give you
four nine RAS. Yeah,
was it 949?
yeah.
Yeah, real elite athlete is what he tested like. And then I'll give you one more that I personally really like. Ricky Stromberg, Arkansas. That
Yeah.
if they're
There's
going to
been
take a
some talk about
center,
him being well. Yeah, I guess some teams don't view him as a center, but I
I
think he could
I
play
like him
center.
as a center, man. I
Yeah,
I like him as a center because this dude explodes out of his stance, can get to the second level. I would like to see him pulling out in space. Like he's a good player, man. Like he's matched
I've
up
been
with the
mocking him
best
to
of
the
the
Dolphins.
best. He's been matched up with the best of the best in the SEC, like facing tons of good
Yes.
competition. He's a guy that I definitely could see. He had a formal visit with them at the combine. So there's a little bit of intrigue there as well. So a lot of interior options. It'll be interesting to see kind of if they end up going, that route. But
Hmm.
Big Ben's burner, Clayton Tune to the Steelers toward the end of the draft. I saw we brought him in for a visit. No quarterback 3 currently. We're on the same page, brother. I mocked with the last pick of the draft. I think the Steelers are going to take a quarterback. It could be Jaron Hall, who was brought in for a top 30 visit. That's who I mocked them. It could be Clayton Tune. It could be some random cat that we just aren't even thinking of. But if the Steelers were willing to waste a pick at that point in the draft last year, which did bother me because last year's class was deeper and I didn't like wasting
Yeah,
that pick.
they could have gotten something else there. Like they could have gotten a different dart to throw.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
at least this year, the draft is a little more shallow. There's no number 3 quarterback on the roster. So there is a path for him to making the 53. There was never a path for Chris Oladokun to make the 53 unless they were really going to wholeheartedly listen to trade offers for Mason Rudolph, which he didn't do. So
yeah.
I don't know. I do think
Can I
that
throw a
there's a
name at you
potential
that I've thought
name.
about? I haven't seen him linked to the Steelers at
Yeah.
all. Malik Cunningham. Get somebody that can emulate the more mobile quarterbacks for the
Sure.
practice squad. Or
Yeah.
obviously QB3 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm actually really familiar with Malik Cunningham, seeing as I'm from and currently reside in Louisville.
Yeah.
Cunningham is a phenomenal athlete. He actually
Yeah.
broke some of Lamar Jackson's records at Louisville. Now he did play in college for quite a while. So,
Yeah.
like you said, really good athlete, can really run. I know that he has had conversations with teams as well about potentially doing stuff other than playing quarterback because I don't think
I've
that he is
seen. Yeah.
but he's the type of athlete that could do some different things that you could get a little bit creative with. Maybe he, as a guy that takes some carries or something like some trick play type stuff. But I do like where your head's at though, like in terms of potentially, taking a guy like that late in the draft. Cunningham's probably a late day 3 / priority free
Yeah.
agent
Yeah.
type of
Yeah.
player. The Louisville had another guy like this. Different build. What was the guy's name? He played for the Panthers, Reggie Bonifon, and he stuck around in the league for a
Hmm.
little bit as Christian McCaffrey's backup. So I mean that could be certainly possibility there as well. Mike Turner showed interest in Darnell
Oh,
Washington late. Do you
also
think
wait,
he's an option at
another
49?
one that I would
Go ahead.
throw out there is DTR.
I'm on the DTR train. That's probably my favorite. If we're talking dart throws in like the 6th, 7th round or something like that, if they were to go that route, again, it's not my favorite route. I just expect them to do it. And if you're gonna do it, I'm 100% willing to go on DTR. Tons of experience, another good athlete. I think he's, he's a little more volatile, I would say, than a lot of your other backup quarterback options. But DTR's got some really good, I think, backup qualities that you'd want. Showed interest in Darnell Washington late. Do you think he's an option at 49? I'll let you take that one.
I hope so, but I don't think he's going to be there. Listen, just as recently as yesterday, when we were doing that mock draft, he's getting a lot of smoke at like pick 20 to Seattle. Seattle apparently loves Darnell Washington.
Okay.
I can't see him going that, but if you see him like starting to get smoked that high, it's very far cry from 49. I just think that you're just see in a really good tight end class, a lot of teams that maybe have their pass catching tight end already in place, looking to run some more 12 personnel, looking for more of like an inline blocker. I mean, he's an extra tackle. He's an extension of the offensive line when you add a guy like that. In my world that I envision, I think that the door is open to that possibly happening, and I would absolutely love it. I don't view Freiermuth as really a tight end. He's not going to offer what you want as an inline player. He's basically a big slot. I think he kind of, when they traded Claypool last year, I said, okay, now Pat Freiermuth is your slot receiver. Who's your tight end? Darnell Washington could be your tight end. I absolutely love the idea of adding him to this football team.
Yeah, no, I'm on board with Washington. He's like in the mid 30s, I think, on my big board. Washington
tight
to
end
me,
what?
3. So him and Laporta are like neck and neck. It really is a flavor thing.
I thought maybe you were going to have Laporta above him. That's why.
Yeah, it's a flavor thing to me. Washington is an incredibly safe player, in my opinion, because I think he's going to be a tight end too, potentially for like the next 10 years. I know it's hyperbolic to sometimes say that because,
when he's like 38 years old, he's going to be Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah, Mercedes Lewis, another good comp that I've seen, Martellus Bennett, a guy who, started his career behind Jason Witten, but never really was like that dominant pass catcher. And then he like randomly had a couple really good seasons in Chicago, like later in his career as a receiving threat. I don't know if Washington ever gets there. Like he can run up the seam. You can dump it down to him. I did a YouTube video on this channel that you can go watch if you want on Washington, but you can do some things with him as a pass catcher, but he's so lumbering in terms of like just changing direction, sinking his hips, route running. It's just not like he's never going to be like a number even 2 or even 3 option, in my opinion, in an NFL offense. He's a complementary, like auxiliary type piece that you're going to add. But like you said, he's a force multiplier in the run game. Like this dude, like they made him block guys one-on-one in pass protection against SEC level defenders. He was blocking Gervon Dexter from Florida one-on-one. He was blocking edge rushers one-on-one. I love the way, like the displacement that he can create in the run game. I'm on board. I agree with your take on Freiermuth. He's definitely more of like a move tight end, in my opinion. But I don't know. They could potentially go that route. It's just I don't know. This tight end
the
class
board would
really
have
good.
to fall a very specific way, I think, for him to be the guy that they look at in that spot. So
yeah, I completely agree there. In terms of this tight end class, man, it's so good. And that's what like the thing with the Steelers. And why I'm not really keen on, giving up some of these picks that they've got. It's just like there's so many guys or positions that I would like for them to address, even if it's not starters, like just like role player. Like I think this draft is like the meat and potatoes of this draft is in that like 25 to 70 range. Like
I keep saying this. I wish they had no picks in round 1 or rounds 4 through 7. Just every pick in rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, like the draft falls off a cliff, in my opinion, after like the 5th round. Like there's just not a lot of guys that I can really get on board with late that I'm really excited about. But then like, in the middle rounds, man, like I think you can find a bunch of like just starting quality players. And that's my thing. Gavin, I'll post a link real quick that'll help you out with that. I'm not going to go through like a bunch of that, but basically the 0 through 5 tech, that's just the alignment of the defensive lineman in the trenches. Like it's just a positional alignment. So 0 tech is over the center, like head up over the center, and then it moves up. You know, a wide 9 is like where you're playing like outside the tight end, or a ghost tight end if you're an edge rusher, and everything in between is those numbers. But I'll post a link in the chat, and you guys can y'all can go check that out if you want. I have a good article that I like to reference when people ask me that. Next, if you aren't talking about it yet, can you talk about Darnell Wright versus Broderick Jones if they're both there? By the way, really appreciate it, man. Zach, appreciate you supporting my content. I'll let you handle
Great man, by
that.
the
We've
way.
already kind of talked about this, but like I did want to get your take, like because you mocked, or you're saying you're mocking Jones and I'm mocking Wright. So like give me
Yeah.
your take. Give me your take on how you view both players and who you like better and why.
I like both, but I think I could end up loving Jones within 2 years. I think
Okay.
Broderick Jones, there's some projection within what you think he is as a player. I don't know that he's going to come in right away and be a very good left tackle in the NFL. His hand placement gets too wide a little bit, and I think that's my biggest issue. I think if he cleans up some of the technical stuff, which I think is very possible to do, still, I think he's very moldable and coachable because he's still so raw to the position. I think he's going to be a very good left tackle in the NFL. With Darnell Wright, I like him. I like him at right tackle. I don't think that he is going to be able to play left tackle in the NFL, and I think that's where that gap in terms of how I view them comes into the conversation, because a left tackle is always going to trump a right tackle for me in terms of how valuable they are. So while I like both players, I think I could end up loving Broderick Jones based off what I'm projecting him to be within like 2 years in the NFL with an NFL coaching staff.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I have Darnell Wright as my tackle too, and I'll agree with what you're saying. Like I completely agree that in 3 years from now, it wouldn't surprise me if Paris Johnson was the best tackle of this class. It wouldn't surprise me if Broderick Jones was the best tackle in this class. It wouldn't even surprise me if Anton Harrison was the best tackle in this class. But I just think about like plug and play ability. I think that if I had to pick one of those guys to go play next year, I think it's Darnell Wright. And I also
I agree.
think that there is a noticeable floor there where I think that, and it's just my opinion on Jones, I think that the variability with him and the range of outcomes is pretty freaking vast, man. Like it scares me because when you look at a guy like that, watch Broderick Jones in the Missouri game against Isaiah McGuire. McGuire was taking it to him. You talk about his hand placement being too wide.
Yeah, he ain't going to be able to get away with any of that in the NFL.
McGuire, speed to power, was running straight through his chest. Then go back and watch his matchup with BJ Ojulari. Ojulari had a sequence of about 5 plays. He got 3 pressures on Jones, hit Stetson Bennett a couple times. What I noticed was on tape, it seemed like Georgia and Todd Monken was like, we don't trust this dude one-on-one with Ojulari. So they changed up their play calling. They started calling a lot of like swing passes and like safe quick hitters and stuff like that. To me, that signaled like, all right, we know we got to get the ball out of his hands fast because like we're not holding up right now in pass protection. So when you go up against like your top two kind of challenges in the SEC, in my opinion, his biggest 2 matchups, and they both, in my opinion, beat Broderick Jones in pass protection. That is, that worries me a little bit. Like he's a guy that I think if he comes in and plays as a rookie, like it wouldn't surprise me if he gave up double-digit sacks. Like I see Jake in here. Broderick has some Evan Neal vibes at that balance. Completely agree.
Hey, that's what I said earlier about him.
Yeah, completely agree. I think that it would be a rough rookie campaign if he's asked to come in and play early on. But like you said, the athletic tools. I mean, this dude is an absolute road grader. Like he plays nasty. You get him in space. Like he could do whatever you want in the run game. He creates displacement. You can pull him. He gets to the second level. He's powerful. He's got excellent play strength. But in pass protection, hands are a problem. Mixing up his pass sets are a problem. Like making sure that his hands and his feet are tied together is a problem. And I just think that he's a little bit more of a project. And that's why, like when we talked about early in the stream, like trading up for a guy like that, it's a move that could pay off because, like I said, I think Broderick could be a top 10 left tackle in the NFL. I think he's a year away, and I don't think that that's going to come until like later in his rookie contract. And I know because I'm on Twitter like the rest of you guys are, and I see how we treat young players, rookies and stuff that come in and struggle out the gate. And guys can lose confidence. The fan base is on your back because you're a first round pick. We're expecting to be good from the jump. I just don't think Broderick Jones is going to be that good from the jump. I could be wrong. If I am,
Mhm.
I'll definitely own up to it. No big deal. I hope he succeeds. Obviously, for me, that's why I have Wright a little bit higher on my board. So,
Yeah, if you were to ask me to rank tackles right now and not include any projection, just you need these guys to play in an NFL game tomorrow, that drastically changes the way that I'm viewing this
sure.
tackle
Yeah.
class.
Yeah, I completely agree.
What's
What's
the
your
worst draft miss
worst
of all time?
draft miss of all
I
time?
thought Dorial Green Beckham was him, bro. What year was that? 2015, 16, 15, 15.
Was that because he got drafted with Mariota, right? So was that 2016?
Oh, okay. Well,
Or
whatever
maybe it
year
was
it was,
before. I
man.
don't know. Yeah.
I was very high on Daryl Green Beckham from a talent perspective because I know he had gotten dismissed in college. I know there was some other stuff going on there, but I thought just assuming he stayed clean in the NFL, I thought we were looking at like multiple Pro Bowls, All Pro type talent in Dorial Green Beckham.
Oh man, dude, you talk about draft misses. I mean, me personally, I've been doing draft stuff like just for me personally. I've been like writing down my thoughts on the NFL draft since 2012, 2012, I think 2011 or 2013. Sorry. That was my first time like writing everything down, but I've always like been obsessed with the draft. If we're talking about since that 2013, like me really writing stuff down, there's a lot of misses. I think anyone that does like this, even at our like
Oh,
level, like content creating slash like, draft analyst stuff, like is going to have a lot of misses. I would say for me, like the things that really stung, um, I love Dante Pettis out of Washington the year that he came out in
ooh,
2018. I'm pretty sure if I had to go back and look, I believe I had him wide receiver one. And like Pettis, his career, like the plane never even got up off the runway. It's literally still grounded. Like he's still
mm-hmm.
like floating around, I think somewhere in the league. Like I'll occasionally turn on a game on Sunday and he like pops up. But
Played in Chicago last year.
yeah, I don't know. To me, that one was a curious thing. Now there are like other draft misses that I've had
I
that make
love
me.
Justin Gilbert too, by the way,
Justin
former
Gilbert
Steeler
was one,
legend.
but like so a big thing for me is like when I miss on guys in the first round, which happens like every year, there will be a guy that I'm like lower on and he ends up being good. Like, and I try to go back and like you can't correct your mistakes, but like try to like learn from like, all right, what did I miss? Was there something on film that I missed, or like do I need to change the way that I evaluate the position? Any of that stuff, like I think that is important to do. But like with guys like Gilbert, like was it necessarily talent? Like, we don't know sometimes. Was it talent with him? Like, I
Jake.
I think there was a lot of stuff that was not
Yeah,
relative to his on-field talent level. There was a
yeah.
lot of off the field stuff that
Jake
may
brought
have
up a good
precluded him.
point yesterday, and he might have said it specifically about quarterbacks, but honestly, just let's do it for every position. From now on, let's not do our rankings until the players are drafted. See where their landing spot is, and then do the
Yeah,
rankings.
a good
'Cause
point a good point with that is, I was trying to, when I was doing my Keely Ringo video for the YouTube channel, and someone hit me up on Twitter and was asking some questions just about him and like his technique and what I thought was fixable and not, whatever. Um, that's the thing with him. Like we talked about earlier, like Keely Ringo at 17, and you and I both was like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's for the Steelers, right? Say
Mhm.
Seattle takes Keely Ringo at 20. How many people are going back to delete tweets? I want to know. Cause like that's the thing. Like you talk about landing spots. Landing spots matters, man. Like it matters so much because like the situation that you're going into, the coaching staff, the development history that they've had with those type of prospects. You look at Seattle, man. Richard Sherman, Byron Maxwell, um, who was the other like bigger corner? Brandon Browner, Tariq Woolen from last year. Like, dude, like they've done it over and over and over. Like they've had this crazy track record of making these day three guys um, really good freaking players. And so situation really matters. And Justin Gilbert, like, the Browns organization
I don't know if I'm the one that got lost or. Can you guys see me or do you see that? I don't know if it was me or him.
Was a We back? We back?
Oh, I didn't know if
Sorry.
it was you or me. And
No,
okay.
it was definitely me. We're
Lost
good.
DB.
Yeah, now we're good. Yeah, what was the last thing y'all heard me say? Sorry, my connection a little funky downstairs. That's why I like streaming upstairs if I can for the pod, but hopefully we're good. What was the last thing you heard me say? Justin Gilbert, like the Browns, terrible spot for him to
yeah.
go. Who knows how much of that was talent related? Some of the off-field stuff, like you also like sometimes you get misses because of injuries. Like we talked about Okuda, like that was like everybody was universally on board with Jeff Okuda. So there's a lot of stuff that I think plays into that. Steeler Wade, hello, off from Southwest Michigan. What's up, man? Michigan in the house. Maybe a lot of Michigan guys gonna be drafted in the next couple of days. Dave Peterson, I've been a draft nick for a while. I really like Jarvis Jones. Never would have thought he bust the way he did. So this is what I'm talking about, Dave. I just got done giving this rant. This is why it's important to like when guys miss, we need to go back and revisit why we thought they missed. Jarvis Jones. This is a huge lesson for me and everybody else. Athleticism matters more than anything else for edge. Like if you are not an elite level athlete, you are probably not going to be a very good NFL edge rusher. If you cannot consistently threaten the outside shoulders of NFL offensive tackles, you're not going to be that good of an edge rusher. I mean, there are just very few guys that do it with mediocre to below average athleticism. And Jarvis Jones tested like a terrible athlete. And, the production and stuff and all those like unblocked sacks that he had at Georgia, I think everyone learned a really tough lesson, including the Steelers, during that draft process. And that's the thing too, like, we're not professionals and we don't claim to be, but, even historically great organizations like the Pittsburgh Steelers can have historically bad draft misses like Jarvis Jones. So just got to take it in stride. This is a fun question. Zach, how about your biggest draft hits?
Biggest, I can only think of like a recent one that I'm real proud of. And I'm so mad because I have a new Twitter account as of 2021. So this wouldn't even be on there, which is sad because I wish I could go back and find it like once a year. I absolutely loved Max Crosby in 2019 and said I would have taken him in the first round or early second round. And look at what he's turned into for the Raiders. He's awesome. So that is like the recent one that pops in my mind for sure. Because I don't think there's like any in the last few years that have been like because when I think about that, like a draft hit like that, I'm thinking a mid-round guy or something that like I had my eyes on and said this guy's gonna outperform his drafts. Like hopefully Leo Chenal is that guy from the 2022 class.
Yeah, Chenal is a guy that I'm rooting for because that's definitely a guy that I'm definitely close. I like Chenal a lot, not just as a player but as a person. But some of my best hits, man. I think 3 really come to mind that I'm really, really proud of. In terms of like guys that I've liked and have proof that I really liked, I guess. Recently, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So Amon-Ra St. Brown was I think 42nd. I'll have to pull up the tweet. I think he was the 42nd player on my big board that year, and you can look and see where he went. It was in the 120 range.
Oh yeah.
It was very vast.
Well, isn't he wearing 14 because of the amount of receivers that went ahead of him?
Something like that. Where
so
does he take? I'm about to pull up his Pro Football reference thing.
Yeah,
he was 112th overall. So I'm taking a massive dub right there on Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's probably one of the bigger ones. One that I'm also like really proud of, but I also acknowledge that there was probably other factors that was included in his fall on draft weekend. CJ Gardner-Johnson. I had a like top 50. I'm pretty sure like I was like banging the table for the Steelers to draft him in the first round, and he went didn't he go like round 4 or something like that? I was really on board with him as well. And then he's been a great player. He balled out with the Eagles last year, so he'd be 2. And then another guy that like I was consistently mocking to the Steelers in 2017, and I wanted them to take really bad, and I was like probably a round higher or really early on, I guess, was Budda Baker from Washington, and he's been an absolute stud, one of the best safeties in the league. So those are 3 that I'm really, really proud of. But again, I've got I've got more than my fair share of misses.
We all do.
To my record. So I'm just now seeing all these comments like, no, DB lost, Derek's froze.
yeah.
I don't know. Like, Zach, you have to let me know. We didn't really talk about a time frame for this, so like, you need to shoot me a text. Like, if you got to jump off.
I think I'm waiting for Tyler to tell me.
Okay, you just let me know. Like, I'm good to go as long as like we keep getting these questions in. Oh, yeah. I cannot believe that I forgot this. Okay, hold on. I got to go back. Definitely my most proud draft hit, and it upsets me because I only have like one tweet of it, and it's not like nearly as specific as my love for him was. Davante Adams. I was a Davante Adams stan.
Yeah, I wasn't really into I watched the draft. Obviously, I wasn't doing any type of content for it. Like, I wasn't diving into it at all. Like, yeah.
I was begging them to take him in the first round that year because they picked Shazier, I think, like 15th. And I was like, please, Davante Adams. Because that was the year they took Martavis Bryant. But they lost Emmanuel Sanders in free agency. But they had Antonio Brown, and I was like, dude, he's like a perfect compliment for Antonio. Like, this is who I want. And then like he slid out of the first round and started falling into the second round. And I want to say that he either went like a couple of picks before or a couple of picks after the Steelers took Stephon Tuitt. So that was another one for me. I love Davante Adams, one of my favorite players. I think non-Steelers that I've religiously watched over the years just to like learn more about ball. Who's your biggest sleeper of the later rounds? I'll let you go.
So I don't even know if this guy can be considered there. I think everybody's on this train, but like when I first started doing those 4-round mock drafts, he was much later, and I started diving into him. I loved him. Quan Martin out of Illinois, I'm in love with, but I think he ends up going like round 3, so I don't even know I can consider that one. So I'll throw another corner.
How are you on Quan Martin?
Huh?
How high are you on Quan Martin?
Do you consider him a safety?
Give me a range. Like, where would you take him? Like, if you were an NFL GM, you said like, all right, this is the place where I would feel really good about taking him at. Where would you take him? I'm putting you on the spot.
I would take him, especially with the way that this class is at that position, because I think he can do a lot of I think can play a lot of safety, and also in the nickel. I would take him mid-second round and feel good about it.
All right, so we're on the same page. I'm just asking because I'm putting out my big board, and I was like looking at some stuff where
so that's why I can't consider him, even though he's listed as if he's a 3rd rounder on most like boards. But I'm not going to consider him
in the 80s to 100 range of like the consensus board. So I still think that qualifies as a.
But I get another one
sleeper. But yeah, go ahead.
I got another one at corner, and then I'll throw a receiver as well. At corner, I'm going to go Corey Trice Jr. out of Purdue. I think he has a very good chance to be a guy at the next level on the boundary. If you're taking like a guy on day 3 as a developmental guy in the boundary, he'd be who I would hang my hat on. And then at receiver, I don't know how many people have caught on to this, and honestly, I think it's more of an availability thing why he's not getting as much recognition. I'm a big Michael Wilson out of Stanford believer.
Just the injuries.
The availability hasn't been there. But if you were asking me for another one because of that, and honestly, Jake has gotten me onto him. Also, obviously, I had to give Tyler a cap tip because of BYU. Puka Nacua could be a guy at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good like first day of the Senior Bowl before he got hurt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We mentioned Matt Landers there as well. I mean, that's like, I like him. I mean, that's just speed.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather take him where he's going to go probably, though, than take Jalen Hyatt where he's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, high is pretty low for me. He's not the better of the two
Absolutely
Tennessee
not.
receivers.
Where'd you end up putting him? Said your 10.
Hyatt, let me go look. I'll pull up my little doc. By the way, Jartavius Martin's the number 50 player on my big board.
There
So
you
like
go. That's
that's
about where I was thinking. I
yeah,
was thinking like
we were
45 to
right on
50.
the same page there. Hyatt ended up coming in at 69. Nice.
Nice.
I don't know if that's like where he's gonna finish. I'm still like, there's a couple like people that I'm transitioning over that my formatting's getting a little weird, but like he's gonna be in that range. Like I think he's like a third round player. That's just how I kind of view him. But
Yeah.
sleepers a later rounds. Like I already brought up a bunch of guys that I would really like to see in Pittsburgh. Sleepers like day 3 guys like Ricky Stromberg, Keitrell Clark. Jose Ramirez from Eastern Michigan. You talked about Max Crosby, a guy that, kind of came out of nowhere. Ramirez from the same school, not quite the same type of athlete, but watched him at the Shrine Bowl, was really impressed with him. Man, there's a bunch of guys that I would really like in that range. I'm trying to think about some offensive players. Let me pull up the
If you're looking for a
consensus board.
lineman, I think Wanya Morris.
Yeah, Wanya Morris is a top 100 guy for me.
Really? Okay. All right.
I like Wanya Morris a good amount. Let me see. I'm gonna go to Daniel Jeremiah because I feel like he's got the most close.
Someone
to
mentioned
the
Jalen
NFL.
Duncan in here just now.
Yeah, he's
a controversial player.
He's tough. He's a tough.
I don't know that there's a single person that likes him. I feel like everybody loves or hates him.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Duncan, we talked about some of the issues that Broderick Jones has in pass protection. Duncan's he's a mess there, man. All the physical tools in the world, but like he's an older kind of prospect. Like he's a little bit older for being as raw as he is too. Some guys that I'm seeing, I'll just name some guys that are on Daniel Jeremiah's like we'll go like 100 pick after that range. He has Dorian Williams at pick 119. Dorian Williams is a top 100 player for me. I really like him. He's my inside linebacker 5, I believe. We just did the podcast a couple of days ago.
Listen, if Trenton Simpson goes top 40 and Dorian Williams doesn't go till after 100, I'm going to be very confused.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Dorian Williams definitely one of the guys that I feel like I'm a little bit higher on. An interesting player that I didn't get to watch a ton of film on, but like the clips and the little bit I did see, Cameron Mitchell from Northwestern is a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
We already talked a little bit about Ivan Pace. You talked about Corey Trice Jr. I'll give a shout out to this guy because I know Nick is really high on him. Kobe Turner from Wake Forest as a defensive lineman late in the draft, like on day 3. He has a good amount of fans among people that I really trust in terms of, their knowledge of the game. So, there's some good names. Like I said, though, I will be very blunt. I think that this draft really falls off after about the 5th round. Like this is not a draft where it's like last year. Like I would be surprised if you saw like a 7th round haul, like a Isaiah Pacheco or Jalen Watson, like the Chiefs got last year.
Because somebody said, who's the guy in the draft that could be a late round QB like Brock Purdy was? And I know that's asking one position right there, but when you said that, it kind of made me think about I was looking at that question at the same time, and someone replied and said Stetson Bennett. Honestly, the guy that I think about, and I don't know where he's going to go, because he could even go in the mid rounds, just because if you see 4 quarterbacks, maybe, by the way, I think Hendon Hooker goes round 1. If you see 5 quarterbacks go in round 1, those 4 that early, I think you're going to see some guys go in those mid rounds. He could be one of them. But the guy, if I'm taking a shot on a late round guy, I do like some of Clayton Tune's tools. I like Jake Haener. That's probably the one that I would look at as a guy with any type of shot.
Yeah. So I say this as like, I'm not a huge podcast guy. I do consume a lot of like YouTube content and I watch a lot of stuff, but like I don't just like listen to podcasts a lot of times at work. One of the ones that I do like is Prospect to Pros with Dane Brugler. He's like one of the best draft minds in the biz. He's had like the best description of Jake Haener, and it's literally been like he's like the Diet Pepsi version of Bryce Young. And like I literally see there's so many of the same skill sets or traits that you look for in Bryce Young, like his ability to manipulate the pocket, like his pocket
Yeah.
presence, how poised he is, how smooth everything is, the way that he processes information. Like I really like I really like Haener as
I
well.
think
If
he's
he
gonna be
was
a
a guy that
backup for
was
a long time at the very
Oh
least.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that I definitely see like Haener, like even though like he doesn't necessarily have like the starting type of frame that we typically look for quarterbacks, like he's definitely a guy that's going to hang around in the league.
I almost feel
Um,
like whoever drafts Bryce should also just take Haener.
yeah, I mean you don't got to change anything. Yeah, you don't got to change anything. We're gonna get to if you have any more questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to everything that y'all put in there. I'm not gonna hold Zach up too much longer.
I still got to record around the 412 tonight, by the way. So
Yeah, so I know he's a busy man, so I'm not gonna keep him much longer. I do appreciate you guys tapping in with us. Just please,
yeah,
reminder, please make sure y'all hit that like button for me. That helps the channel grow. Make sure y'all are all subscribed to the channel. Make sure you go subscribe to Zach's YouTube channel as well. I think we answered why is Joey Porter Jr. all over the place from Dave. Dave, we talked about this a little bit earlier as it pertained to Porter potentially being the pick at 17. I just think for a senior and for a guy who's going to be a 23-year-old rookie, like he's going to need like his footwork completely retooled from the ground up. Like a lot of false steps, locking out his hips. Like there's some technical refinement that's like blatantly missing from his game. But the length, the 35-inch arms or whatever he has, like to just like engulf wide receivers is really enticing. And I like a lot of parts of his game. I just don't really think that. I think that's why some of the opinions could be a little bit more all over the place, and he's not like a consensus, like top 10, top 15 like prospect. Let me see what else we got here. I think we're like pretty much caught up on questions, unless you see something that I missed. Claude, we already talked about Darnell Washington, so not gonna. We actually spent a good amount of time on him, and there's a YouTube video up on the channel. So, like, if you want like a really, really in-depth breakdown of Darnell Washington, you can go check that out as well. Gavin said, any predictions for position change amongst top guys in the NFL draft, Simpson to safety? So my podcast host, co-host Nick Martin, actually ranked Trenton Simpson as a safety. I know that some people around the league have said that there are teams that value Nolan Smith as an off-ball linebacker. We already talked about Lucas Van Ness maybe being an interior guy, depending on what you're looking for in an edge rusher. I mean, there's obviously a lot of guys that are going to play tackle in college and then kick inside at the next level because they don't have the requisite length. You think about Peter Skoronski, maybe Matthew Bergeron, Cody Mauch, guys like that. In terms of true position switches, Jartavis Martin played in the slot at Illinois last year, not exclusively, but primarily. There are teams that view a lot more teams. He had an interview with the Draft Network that said that more teams are actually asking him about playing like single high, like free safety, than they are about slot. Like, but he said he's good.
Mhm.
He's good to do whatever. But so yeah, I think there's a lot of guys like that. Love to trade DJ for someone's first to get Zay Flowers. I'm gonna let you take that one. He's walking off the set. Michael, can I get an answer? I'm gonna ask you a question for a question. How about that? Why do we not want to just keep Deontay Johnson? Like, I need to understand the rationale between like trading Deontay Johnson for a player that could potentially be a worse version or a different version of Deontay Johnson in
You
the
know that
future.
video from that clip from Family Guy where it's like, this could be
Yeah,
do you want the boat or do you want what's in the box? The
yeah,
box of mystery. The box of mystery could be a boat. You know how much we
right.
wanted one of those.
Yeah. No, it's like that meme is always the one that I think of. It's like, well, we have Deontay Johnson, but we could trade and potentially get another Deontay Johnson. Like I understand like that he's not on a rookie deal. And I know that he's polarizing because listen, I get that he's frustrating. He'll have, inconsistent stretches where he'll drop passes and he runs backwards after he catches the ball. But like this dude is one of the absolute best separators in the league. I promise y'all. I promise y'all. I'm not lying. Like I will tell you this, okay? I'm not, and Zach is the same way, really. Like, we're not one of these people that get on Twitter and we say stuff for likes and engagement. Like, we tell it like it is. Like, we give it to y'all straight. Even when it's, not necessarily always like positive or glowing. Deontay Johnson's the number one wide receiver. There's not 30 receivers better than Deontay Johnson. Like, he's a somewhere in the 15 to 20 receiver range. He's what he is making on his salary is fine. He's great against press coverage. That's why he's their X receiver. You can put him on the backside of 3x1 sets. He's going to beat press. He's going to get open. I know a lot of you guys like constantly, I feel like on Twitter are always asking me, why does Deontay Johnson get so many targets? Why doesn't Kenny Pickett throw to George Pickens? Like, why didn't Ben throw to other guys? Why didn't he throw to Claypool? The
One's
reason why,
open.
yes, the reason why Johnson gets so many targets is because he's always open. Like, and if you guys really just go back and like watch the film, like even when he's not getting targeted, he's still getting separation. I promise those guys are really valuable. And like, I have a phrase that I use like all the time, like separation's king, man. Like, you talk to NFL quarterbacks, like what's the number one thing you want in your go-to wide receiver? I want him to separate. I don't want to have to throw into tightly contested windows and risk throwing interceptions to where, my coach is getting mad at me, everybody on Twitter's cussing me out. I want to throw to the guys that are wide open. And Deontay Johnson gets open, man. So like I just like I said, I think he's
Do
perfectly
we have a
fine.
stat on that? I wonder how many times Steelers quarterbacks have thrown interceptions when targeting Deontay Johnson.
A lot of I mean, there were some interceptions last season, but like they're not. I could look that up because Pro Football Focus has it. I'm not. I'm not. I don't have Pro Football Focus pulled up right now. But yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah, it's not. I feel like it's not because of throwing it into
yeah,
windows that aren't there though.
and maybe as early as the end of next season, maybe Pickens takes this ginormous year two leap because I do think Pickens. Remember, he's only 21 years old. Like, this dude
Sure.
has a really high ceiling. Maybe he starts to eat into that target share. Maybe he's that number one wide receiver. Um, but listen, man, like I think I want to point this out too, because it seems like once Pickens started to really find his footing last season, there was a portion of the fan base that was kind of like putting Pickens versus Johnson. Like, guys, it's okay to have two good receivers. Like
That are
that's the
very
normal
different.
thing.
Yeah.
That's the normal thing around the NFL. Like,
How you build a receiver room.
you really have to have four competent receivers, and ideally, like, you need two really strong receivers because they're on the field 100% of the time. Having a guy like George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, they have perfectly contrasting play styles. It's a good fit. Like, we don't need to do anything crazy. I'm not saying like, Allen Robinson, who knows what that looks like. It's probably a 1-year deal that they'll probably look to get out of just because, the cap hit for next year is kind of
Right.
outrageous. But even adding him to the room, man, this is a good group. Like with Pat Freiermuth, they've invested a little bit in the offensive line. I know a lot of the question marks are going to be around like Pickett's second year leap and mainly Matt Canada still being the offensive coordinator, which we're not going to get on that tangent. But this just I don't know. I get a little bit I get a little bit frustrated sometimes with
I mean,
the Deontay stuff.
certainly not during, the first couple years of Kenny Pickett's time in Pittsburgh. Do you want to take away his best receiver? I mean, that's just not a good way to develop a quarterback on his rookie contract. So that is to me why it's okay to pay Deontay Johnson the money that he's making right now. Because he's the only guy on that offensive side of the football still position wise making any money. I mean, and he is a nice security blanket for Kenny Pickett to have during his first couple years here. Now, obviously, you would like to see him score a touchdown, I think, here and there. So I get where the frustration
Yeah.
is coming from. As
Yeah.
Derek mentioned, it's not like he's not gonna. We're not saying he's some like completely perfect player. He's a top 5 guy in the league at his position or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do want to ask you a question, and I don't know why I just have this view of him as a player. I don't see Pickens ever being like a high volume guy though either. Like I don't think he's ever going to catch like 75 plus passes in the NFL.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's his game.
So that goes back to my point about like, I just think that when you look at the just high target, high volume type of players in the NFL, like they're consistently creating like elite level separation. Like, you just look at the guys that have done it and that archetype. Now, there are guys who have had like wide receiver one stretches who aren't like elite separators. Like Allen Robinson, I think, would be a really good example for what George Pickens' ceiling could potentially look like. Robinson was a clear wide receiver one in Jacksonville before he got hurt and in Chicago. it just looks different. Like that's the thing about receivers. I always say this, but receivers, it's like flavors of ice cream, right? Like it's about what you want, what you have, like complementing skill sets, building out the room. Like a basketball team. You've heard that analogy. Um, I don't know if DJ's ever gonna, or excuse me, Pickens is ever gonna be that high volume guy. I will say
I
this.
don't think he needs to be though either. I was just curious.
Yeah, I will say this. I don't subscribe. I know that stat that ESPN like has created, that open score that Deontay Johnson like leads the NFL in, and like Pickens is
Mhm.
like not graded extremely highly in that. I think that there's more on tape that shows me that he can separate. Maybe not at an elite level, but I think he separates just fine to the point where I think that he can hit his ceiling. Like I
Yeah.
really do. I think for me, it comes down to in year 2, the Steelers have to really be diligent about expanding his route tree. Like he can't run 40% of his routes just vertically down the sideline. It's just like he's good at it, yes, but like if you want him to develop and you want to do the best thing for the player and his long-term future, like you've got to do more with him. And I think that that's going to come next season, but I don't know. I still think that he could be like a wide receiver 1 type. Do I see him being like a Devontae Adams type of target hog? Like I definitely agree with you there. I
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
but like you said, does he need to be? I mean,
No. 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 No.
because
No.
he's a
But I
guy.
think that's why it's so good to have a guy like Deontay Johnson
Yeah,
opposite.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. But like that's the thing too with like Pickens. George could next year. Let's just say, and maybe this is a little high. I don't know how many catches he had last year, but let's just say that George has like 70 catches next year, like 70, 75 catches. Like he could still, like, I think it's realistic to expect, if Pickett takes the leap that we hope he does, the offensive line's functional, they're just a better, more well-rounded offense. I think it's potentially fine to expect Pickens to go for like 70 catches, like little over 1,000 yards, maybe like 7, 8 touchdowns. Like I think he could have that type of year
Yeah.
next year,
I
and
agree.
I don't think that's crazy at all. Like that's not me like fanboying over him because like I liked him in the draft process last year. I wanted the Steelers to draft him. Like I legitimately think Pickens is like really good, and I think that he's very early on his runway in terms of his development. I think we're caught up on questions. So, real quick before we get out of here, go ahead. What you got? You look like
No,
you're
I
about to
just
say
wanted to
something.
say, just going back to DJ as well, like I don't need to make excuses for the guy. I just also think about, okay, I look at his tenure in Pittsburgh so far. 2019 is the year that Ben got hurt, so he played the rest of the year with Mason Rudolph and Duck, and then he had Ben post elbow surgery before having Mitch Trubisky and rookie Kenny Pickett with Matt Canada as the offensive coordinator as well.
Not
I
great.
don't think he's ever played in a good offense either.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Like it goes back to our conversation about prospects earlier. You know what I'm saying? Like situation matters, man. The environment matters. And Michael, I don't want you to take like we're not getting on you anything like that. I think it's healthy conversation.
No, I'm making a YouTube video that's called "Hey Michael Payer," and it's just going to be Deontay Johnson film.
No, it's good conversation, man. I don't want it to come off like that at all. But like I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
appreciate you tapping in. Just before we get off here, I wanted to ask you because I've done this with Nick Faribault and I've done this with Nick Martin, and we've talked. I want you to give me. Doesn't necessarily have to be guys that like you mock to the Steelers or have mocked to the Steelers. I want you to give me the 3 guys that you feel most confident will be Pittsburgh Steelers when let's just say Sunday or Saturday night drafts over. These 3 guys, that's where I'm putting my money. They're in
Okay.
Pittsburgh as early as next week.
Yeah, Keanu Benton's one of them for sure. Um, uh, man, it's okay. Keanu Benton. I mean, I gotta stay true to my mock. Roger Jones is gonna be one of them.
Okay.
I can't. Yeah, otherwise, what am I doing? And the third one that I will say, This is going to be a hope on my part, I think, more than anything else. Julius Brents.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Yeah, I think
and I feel the most confident about Keanu Benton, by the way, by like a wide margin within those three.
Yeah. No, I tweeted this out like a month or so ago, but like it would really surprise me if the Steelers didn't end the draft with Keanu Benton, Mozzie Smith, or Gervon Dexter.
Yeah,
Like,
see, I could have said all three of those.
yeah,
I was trying to
any of them
diversify
make
positions,
sense. Like they all, you can talk yourself into all three of them if they're there on day 2 at 32, at 49, depending on if they move up, they move down, whatever. I definitely think that makes sense in terms of like talking yourself into
Carl
someone.
Brooks if they wait on defensive line.
So Carl Brooks is a good name, with Carl Dunbar being at his pro day. The thing about Brooks too, like I think that his stock has taken a little bit of a hit especially from where it was like early in the cycle. Brooks is a bit of a tweener, but I love the hand usage, and I do think that he can transition to a 3 tech at the next level. But he didn't test very well at all. He actually tested really poorly at his pro day. But someone hit me up on Twitter saying that apparently he was very, very ill. So he was gutting through the workout, which could explain some of the really bad testing numbers. Because when you watch that dude on film, he's sudden. Like he looks like at least an NFL athlete, even though he didn't test like it. So Carl Brooks is a good one. I will just continue to go back to you talk about wishing something into existence, but also like I think that this one makes sense. It's like Dorian Williams from Tulane. Like I think if they're gonna take an inside linebacker, I hope /pray /think it's going to be Dorian Williams for Tulane, like with the 3rd or 4th round pick. I have a good feeling. I think he is a good fit for what they need. So it'll be interesting to see like kind of how that plays out. But appreciate you guys, everybody, for tapping in with us. Zach, I really appreciate you joining me like for this stream. It was a lot of fun, like answering everybody's questions. We got great participation, like way more than I ever would have imagined. So I definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in. Just on the way out, please make sure you subscribe to both YouTube channels, mine, Zach's. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter. I know Zach is in the same boat, but like we are both going to be pushing out like hella content over the next like several days, like as the NFL draft process, is getting underway here. Best weekend of the year. I do want to remind everybody, Nick Martin and I, so my podcast host, co-host for the Steelers Draft Talk on the All Steelers channel, he and I are doing a NFL pre-draft show tomorrow from 5 to 7 Eastern. I will tweet that out. I want you guys to come check that out. Lock in with me and him. We're going to be talking everything leading up to the NFL draft, a little hype show. We're really excited about that. And then Zach is also having his live stream during the draft. So if you guys want more
NFL, Zach's not going to be there. It's going to be Mid Kiper Jr.
Oh, Mid Kiper. Okay, got you. Mid Kiper's my guy, dude. I love that shit. No, but I definitely want you guys, if y'all are, everybody's in draft mode, like there ain't no better place, in my opinion, to get your stuff. So come back tomorrow, 5 to 7 over here on this channel, and then y'all can hop over to Zach's and kick it with those guys during the NFL draft. Hope everybody has a good rest of your weekend. Let's root for a good outcome for the Steelers. Appreciate you guys for hopping on with us. Hit that like button, drop us a comment on what you thought of the episode, and let us know if you want us to do more of this kind of stuff. Appreciate you guys. Peace.